On this week's episode of the Superhero Show, we'll find out if the Penguin stuck the landing, if Superman stuck his boys with a shitty life, and if guest stars Nate and Greg can put their feud behind them to do the show together. All of that and more on an all-new episode of the Superhero Show. Hello, nerds, and welcome to the Superhero Show, the only podcast on the internet that covers every TV show that came out this week based on a comic book that we want to cover that we had watched. Sometimes there will be shows that, you know, it all makes sense. Like, if you want an intro that makes more sense, go listen to a Cassie episode. But tonight, Ryan's here. That's me. And I'm taking over with my hoodlums, my homies, my PICs, partners in crime. It is Greg.
Hello.
Who has been brought back to the show because of a certain Gotham gangster.
I'm happy to be here, Ryan. Penguin's the reason for the season.
And Nate, who's just always here now.
I'm just always here because there's cheap beer and we get to have rousing chats about overthrowing the patriarchy / something else.
It's fun to feel like you have a reason for watching the Penguin.
Right. That it's work. I'm getting a paycheck for this. Before we get into all the episodes, guys, how was your week? Did everybody, without like being too specific about anything that's going on, is everybody doing okay?
I'm getting through one day at a time.
Are you muddling?
I'm muddling along. But yeah, thank God we have fun comic book properties to get us through these tough times.
It's great to have really good content that exists showing how good always prevails, and no one ever nominates anyone for anything that doesn't make a lot of sense.
And there's no way that anybody in this country of ours is watching TV shows like The Penguin and getting the wrong idea from it, or
right. Yeah, no, everybody's getting the metatextual meaning of this fabulous television program.
Fabulous is the only word for it. Tonight, we are going to cover this week's Superman and Lois, but first, it is the season, possibly series, but right now we're going to say season finale of The Penguin. On the season or series finale of The Penguin, Sofia Gigante, Oz Cobb, and all of the first mates of Gotham's underworld duke it out for control of something, probably. After making a deal with a city council member, Oz takes Sofia not to her final resting place, but instead her final resting place as she heads back to Arkham, excuse me. Oz then takes his newly catatonic mother, going blank at simply the worst time for Oz's ego, to her penthouse overlooking Gotham City, where we get to see the bat signal and squeal in delight. Taste buds, I ask you this. Does the Penguin end in such a way where we're excited for the expanding Reeves-verse, Bat-verse, chorus-verse?
I don't know about that, because I feel like it got us all the way up to the edge of something and then didn't quite go over, which is we have him pretty penguified by the end. He's fully embraced his like super villainous aspect. He's wearing top hat and tails, but it doesn't have to then do the thing of like we watch him be the Penguin with that. And I don't know, I just feel like there's a final step that it can't really take and hope to successfully manage. And so I wonder if this is going to kind of be the end. Like you hinted that it might be the end of the series. Are they going to do any more with it?
I mean, I hear new stuff every day, but the most recent thing is that there was a little name dropped. Sofia Gigante has a half sister. And that there might.
Oh, Selena Kyle.
Yeah. And there might be 10 episode runs for all of the villains.
Okay.
So it's either Penguin was a success and we're done with it, or it was not a success, or it was a success and we do 1 million more than we need to.
Great. Yeah, because what we need is to expend this amount of time on every single villain and then kind of leave on a wet fart.
I have to say that, and it's hard to know where Nate lands on the show based on that, but
no, I'm very nuanced.
I fucking hated this. Like,
this was really lame. This was disappointing in almost every way.
Unless I use that word when talking about the Penguin, but
fair. Yes, this was
I was in and out of the show as far as like my feelings on its quality. It had some very high moments, but apparently I was putting a lot on the finale to sell me on the entire series, and it did not. And I just wonder why we go on from here, not where we go or if we go, but why we would, because you're not taking all the steps to make it feel Batman-y for us, like the Batman that we know, and you're not doing anything new character-wise. Like, I would love if it truly committed to a character study, but it's so, every time it gets to one of those moments, unless it's two women in the same room talking, which we've talked about in previous episodes, where the show always shines. But when it comes to Oz and Vic, we'll get to Vic. It wet farts. Like, it just doesn't commit to doing anything interesting or new.
Yeah. Who, like, at the end of this, who is Oz? Who is the Penguin? Like, how is he defined differently or more clearly than, like, Danny DeVito's portrayal or Burgess Meredith's portrayal?
I mean, he is someone who wants to be loved and revered, but also who will not let anybody get close to him anymore. And so he has this toxic mix of, like, I have to create a world that says it loves me, even though I'm never going to let anybody get close enough to, like, have that feeling for me anyway. I don't know if any of that's new, but he's, like, out there drifting as if, like, on an iceberg. If you think about it.
Yeah. Entirely unlike an iceberg, everything about him is above the surface and there is nothing beneath. Like, what is the point to defining an iconic comic book villain as, like, this is every disaffected white man in everywhere? Like, this is a pair of Levi's jeans. Look around the room. Is everybody else wearing them? Yes, we're all the same. Like, this is not, it's not like, I don't know. It's just like, okay, he's a mama's boy and he's got, like, a Napoleon complex, power complex thing.
The mama's boy thing, like, that's nothing, like, new at all, right? And not even in the gangster realm. Like, I feel like if you're...
Look at me, Ma. I'm on top of the world. Like, from the very beginning of the genre.
And if you
the only thing that's new is he's not Italian. Like, that's the only thing that's new, is that he's not an Italian mama's boy.
So badly as well.
And to be the thing that you most seem to resemble, have it be The Sopranos, and that is, like, the central tenet of Tony Soprano as well.
With a famously catatonic mom who is difficult to deal with throughout the series until,
And I mean, there's a large part of me that sort of thinks that, or knows that the creators of this show are just like, well, we're appealing to an audience that we hope has never seen The Sopranos. Like, that's the prayer shot, is we just hope that it's not homage, right? There are other homages in this show, but it's to The Sopranos. It's just like, let's pray that we're the first. And then when they watch The Sopranos, eventually they'll think it's corny.
At best, it's pastiche. It's like how Las Vegas has, like, a tiny Eiffel Tower and a tiny New York and a tiny pyramids. Like, we're not doing the thing. We're not even trying to do it at scale. It's just like, here, this is kind of an approximation of what this could be.
But why go see the Eiffel Tower or the pyramids when you can just come to Vegas and see it all, baby? Just come here and we'll give it all to you. And Penguin, you tried, but, like, there were so many moments in this episode specifically that it was impossible to not roll my eyes of, like, and it's not even that a typical, like, hacky thing to say as a TV critic is they needed more episodes. That's not true either.
No,
like, no, they just didn't have an end goal in mind that was sophisticated at all. It was just like, well, you know how these things turn out. It was like, well, we don't know yet.
I was pretty into the show right up until this episode, and I felt like it burned through all the goodwill and then retroactively made some of the show look bad. I'll tell you that my number one example for this is I understand the cleverness of his mom, like, being, like, locked in and comatose, and so then at the height of his success, he's not able to actually get that affirmation from her when he feels like he earned it. That's a cool idea. Having him bellow that for, like, 5 minutes And really, for that to be the worst part of Colin Farrell's performance as that guy between the show and the movie, I felt like that created a crack in the quality of the show that like everything else sort of seemed to chip away from there. It's even an okay moment, but you can't have the character shouting that over and over and over again, like underlining exactly what it's supposed to mean for the viewer.
This happens so much in the show too, where they say things really loud and repeatedly so that it hammers home like, oh, pay attention, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't remember if earlier in the series he says to his mom, I'm going to get you a penthouse that overlooks all of Gotham. But he sure as hell says it a couple of times in the final episode when that's exactly the button we put on the end of it. And it's like, no, thank you. You think you're creating circular storytelling? What you're doing is you're making me feel like you think I'm stupid because I understood everything that was going on already.
Also,
like,
I did not buy like Sofia Gigante suddenly being like, you know what? I'm going to leave. I'm actually done. It's like, wait. The show is done with you.
Right.
Like, why would this character who's been doing everything that she's been doing, and suddenly she's just like, you know what? The first person to bring him to me, then I'm going to leave, and that's it, and you can have everything. And even she says, for whatever that even means, it just like, that was so unsatisfying.
I mean, I think that it all was. I think that's the ultimate word, is that even when there were aspects of the show that were well built up, there was not a single satisfying landing about anything in this episode except for one. The one thing that I think they nailed, or she nailed, is that she seems more okay with Oz shooting her in the back of the head than the realization that he's going back to Arkham. And that look of realization on her face without a 5-minute lecture to us about how much Arkham sucks, but we just are like, we feel so bad for her in that moment. That is the show. That should have been the show. And if people are missing that because it's not fucking spoon-fed to them, they should find another show. You know, I love Batman Caped Crusader. It might be more their speed. But Batman Caped Crusader has, you know, so much more subtlety than this show ever attempted to.
I mean, the thing that where he kills Vic, he again is like saying exactly what the meaning of the act is while he's doing it. It's very awkwardly shot, and the least surprising twist, I feel like, in the history of shows. Like,
it was annoying because they make Vic suddenly be like a puppy dog son figure harder than he has been for the previous 9 episodes. And they're like, here, let's drive this in, how much you love him. And, oh, we've gone this long way. And it's like, of course this is going to happen. Like,
I mean, if he had not killed Vic, or maybe even started to, but stopped, that would have been a twist. Like, that means that we have seen Oz arc a little bit.
Yeah.
Just the slightest amount from the absolute despicable piece of shit he was at the beginning of the show. But they didn't want the twist. They just wanted the shock.
You know what I thought would have been a cool twist? I think a cool twist would have been Vic does betray the Penguin. And the way he betrays him is he gives up his mom. And then the ultimate twist is the whole time the mom was like a big red herring. This is my flashing red spot. Don't tell anybody about my big weak point. If anybody ever hits this, I'll be so screwed. And then when it really comes down to it and someone is threatening his mom, he goes, actually, I hate that bitch. So that would have, I thought, been interesting because then Vic would have betrayed him and he would have ultimately seen it coming and then betrayed Vic like ahead of time and betrayed his mom.
A little 3-dimensional chess.
Yeah, something. Yeah. Because the whole time the show is like, is this guy clever or is he like got this just low animal cunning that seems to always get him ahead? And I think it would have been more interesting if it turned out he's exceptionally clever rather than kind of like he's always just getting out of every situation and then just finding some way to get ahead.
Just always got that same hatch that he killed his brothers in to dive into when he needs it.
Do you remember that time where Sophia showed up at Walmart to kill him and he dove in that hatch in the back of Walmart and was like totally fun?
I think my twist that I proposed a few episodes ago on this show would be better, which is Sophia was the Penguin the whole time because her hair gets more feathered. She gets more like bird-like in her makeup. And it would have been great if the turn was like, oh yeah, no, she kills Oz. Like that would have been fine. And that would have at least been a swing, right? Like this episode does everybody dirty.
Yeah.
And doesn't care. Like it seems to think it's like high art to do everybody dirty, and it's not. Like leaving Sophia in Arkham sucks. Like that was a gut punch that was just annoying. Although that last scene was great.
At the whim of that weird doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, her weird bottom psychiatrist guy that like suddenly now he's gonna try to top. Like he can't top.
Oh, I see. I thought you meant weird bottom, like he only has one butt cheek.
That too, but
there's
it's
something that
functional.
I wanted to address to you guys before we move on about the show in general. And I know that it didn't choose the timing, the time in the world or the country that it came out, but something really hit me here about how Batman, just the whole world, the whole character, and all of his supporting characters and villains, and so many people who decide to do Batman in a particular style. So I'm not talking Harley Quinn. I'm not talking any of the animated stuff, right? Specifically with the movies, are at this point appealing, like doing the opposite of what the boys did, where the boys was like, oh, our fan base is partly awful. We're going to double down on how they're the awful ones, even if it means we lose them. Watching the Penguin and his whole, like, how he thinks about humans and life is so fucking incel to me.
Yeah.
And how he is not just the titular character, but there's no, like, you are supposed to, I believe, root for him the entire time. I think there's this thing about not necessarily DC versus Marvel or, Hulk versus Superman, but specifically about Batman, that at this point is appealing to the lowest common denominator. I mean, worst common denominator.
Absolutely. I think that the last shot of the show is trying to allude to like the vibe of the last shot of Empire Strikes Back. You're supposed to be like, oh, we didn't win this one completely. It was a Pyrrhic victory, but your boy's still going, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the thing that all of his sort of class war talk is right out of this like populist authoritarian playbook. It's not like, hey, what we should do is start a really interesting nonprofit. We'll sell some drugs and then we'll start an organization to help people pay for their electrical bills or whatever, right? Like there's no and he's so fucking weaselly because he just like the way he resolves all of his problems in this episode is he goes and he just like gives everybody up to another person. He uses the system to his own gain.
It's like people hate me. And so I have to hate them or I have to do bad things. But almost all of the time, they hate you because you do awful things, because you're a piece of shit. You think you're doing that ahead of time, or you think you're doing that because of how society treated you. In so many opportunities, you were the first. And going back to last week's flashback, his brothers were kind of making fun of him, I guess. But no, that's how he handled the situation.
Your brothers give you shit. Like, I mean, like
that's the way of the world.
Yeah.
But instead, he did what he did and then pins it on this, like, well, it's because I'm not respected and this is the way to earn respect. And I hate having this conversation, about, oh, is this dangerous for the youth of America to watch? But I don't know, man. I don't think that they're doing a great job of that either.
I guess I felt like he's at the end. I felt like this episode was supposed to end any feeling you might have that he's sort of the hero of this story.
For us.
You mean for like the people on this podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think anybody who's intelligent enough to understand, but yeah.
The part where he like his sex worker friend is dressed and made up like his mom and then says like, I'm so proud. Like that I think is supposed to be deeply pathetic and awful. I think like his killing Vic is supposed to be a reminder that like ultimately like the populist heroes that rise up will just turn around and completely like serve up anybody who helps them. Like, they'll betray those people so quickly, which I think is like a anti-authoritarian message. So I do think that it's supposed to be, look how pathetic this guy is. He gets everything he wanted and he is ultimately like in his own hell.
I mean, I can't speak for the people I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go online to research what they're saying.
We can't fathom them. I think that's like, that's something that we really we understand intellectually, but I think I'm like to the degree to which I'm now understanding, we do not have any apprehension of these people. We don't know what they're like. We don't understand them. So yeah, I guess I can't say they get any sort of message.
The Penguin felt he was mistreated and that the world owed him a living, and then he did whatever it took to, and not instead of like work, did whatever it took to basically create this world where he's got his mom in his penthouse, and then his lady friend dressed as his mom, like he painted with the exact brush that he wanted to. And I'm afraid that there's people who are like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I think that this is like, hopefully this is our sort of trailing edge of this whole anti-hero movement in television storytelling. Because like we passed the peak long ago, right? Like peak was probably somewhere with Mad Men and Breaking Bad and Sopranos.
Right.
And it's just gotten worse and worse, where now it's like, oh, well, to make a character interesting, they're secretly a shithead. And that's how we're going to do that. And that's what this feels like. It's like, oh, he's a villain, so it's okay that we do this because everybody knows he's a villain. We'll humanize him a little bit and then we'll revillainize him. But it's like, no, just like part of the thing that I always loved about superhero stuff is that the best villains might think they're doing the right thing, but they're indisputably a villain. Like, it's clear that this is not the right choice. You know what I mean? And I think
or
that's
okay
that's being
ideas,
lost.
bad, bad way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what's being lost. And especially because this show lacks a foil for him. Like, Sophia's a foil, but she's not a foil to another morality. She's just a foil within the same, like, oh, we just do whatever we can to get ahead morality, right? Which just means that you're playing evil off of evil and rooting for the best evil person to win. And like, I mean, I think that's part of the issue. Like, there is no Batman in this. There is no superhero. There is no real even like presence of goodness, right? I'm not even gonna say that like there should have been cops in this, but I'm saying like there could have been anybody who was like a righteous individual that we were shown.
There could have
and
been one of the
zero.
lesser Batman stable of heroes. They could have thrown in a Prowler or no, what is it? Huntress or Anarchy.
Yeah.
Damian Knight.
I mean, I think that with the Mad Men, Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, and then of course the all-time king, King's Low Winter Sun and Ray Donovan, it was always with those shows, at least for me, character over plot. I did not care as much what would happen as opposed to watching these people go through it or reflect on it, right? That's why when you talk to people whose favorite show is Breaking Bad, you got to ask a couple more questions, like, why is it your favorite show? And they'll sort of let you know who they are. This show just didn't have the chops or it didn't have the desire to actually give us full-fledged characters when it wanted to, except again, I will say that Sophia and his mom, when they were together, and Sophia and Eve, the girlfriend, when they were together, Sophia was like the perfect female foil for female characters. And that's as far as it sort of went.
I thought she was the best part of the entire show. The coming attractions for the show, or like this season on, was just like a lookbook for all her absolutely stunning outfits. I loved the haircut that she got. I think you said it kind of looked like penguin feathers to you, Nate. I felt like it almost recalled the halo that she has from the comic book when she breaks her neck, and had like the same shape to it. Also, it's just one of those, fuck you, I'm so hot, I can just absolutely brutalize my hair and I'll still be the most attractive person you've ever seen. And that is why ultimately, for people who are just there to watch Sofia Gigante, that is the biggest betrayal of this last episode, which is just like the show is just kind of done with her. And she just, I did like the, I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to send you to hell. And she goes back to Arkham. And I guess I kind of like the idea that there's some future for her story, whether or not they end up telling it. I'm not super duper interested in like her and Catwoman, but I am interested in just Sofia Gigante. So.
Well, we're telling them now. So when they listen to this episode, they will know to do it. Penguin is over. You can check it on Max and wait for news of a renewal or whatever happens. Before we move on, though, Greg, you told me before we started recording that you have a website you started working on.
I do. I have a website. It's called Big Flannel Shirts. It's for guys who love to wear big flannel shirts. Hey, gentlemen, it's flannel season. Check out bigflannelshirts.com.
Is it just shirts, or can we get like long johns?
It's just shirts, right? It's just big flannel shirts.
So like if I'm in the market for like a flannel blanket, could I go
you
here?
could get a couple of the shirts and sort of clip them together if you want. It's Big Flannel Shirts. Big Flannel Shirts.
What about for I'm a gentleman of a average to smaller size. Are there small flannel shirts?
Nope, just Big Flannel Shirts. Bigflannelshirts.com.
Sometimes people interchange the words flannel and plaid. So
no.
If I just want something that's in plaid, like a picnic blanket.
Nope. It's just big flannel shirts. Bigflannelshirts.com.
What if I want a big flannel shirt to use as a picnic blanket, but I do want it, small and made of polyester and not in the shape of a shirt?
We will sell you a big flannel shirt, and we don't ask any questions.
How big of a flannel shirt are we talking? How big do we go?
XXL, XXXL, maybe a 4XL. They're gonna be big. They're big flannel shirts. Bigflannelshirts.com.
Can we do the thing that we used to do in kindergarten where you would throw like the parachute up
Yes.
and everybody sit underneath it?
That's the day they would just randomly have one day.
It was raining, so we had Jim.
Day.
And we could do a big flannel shirt with that?
Bigflannelshirts.com. You sure could.
How many X's on that? XL.
On the parachute one,
Yeah.
We're talking 7 X's.
That's not as many as I thought.
Yeah, all my exes live in Texas. That's why bigflannelshirts.com is based in Tennessee.
Well, Greg, this website with all of these options, I do want to help you make it for some reason.
Yeah, there's only one problem about it, Ryan.
What's that?
Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The website is broken. It only sends you tiny non-flannel pants. So I want to tell you about cybersprout.org. Excuse me. From easy to edit fields, custom templates, and drag and drop tools, you will always have the power to keep your site current. And if you need help, Cybersprout is always available.
Drag and drop tools.
A lot goes into running a website, and chances are you didn't create yours because you love handling the maintenance.
No, I did it because I love big flannel shirts.
So check out Cybersprout. Just Google it or it doesn't work. Sorry, Cybersprout. I'll look that up later. When we come back, the rest of the shows. Now it's time for the pull list, where we talk about all the other shows that came out this week, which is only Superman and Lois. On this week's episode of Superman and Lois, Clark is running around town proving to everyone that he is most certainly not Superman. When a bully gets in trouble through his family's lying, he starts to rethink his plan. And when a guy with a gun comes into the diner and threatens everyone, well, Taste Buds, ask you this. Did we get one of the greatest scenes in Superman history?
I think so. When that guy comes into the diner?
Mhm.
Yeah, dude, because Clark's got to pretend like he's not Superman. But then a guy comes in with a gun, and the way he resolves that, I thought was pretty interesting.
Greg, did you watch the CW show?
I did.
Or are you AIing right now?
I'm just... Is it not clear that I'm just shuffling along?
Not only did I love that scene, I love the scene before it and after it.
Oh my gosh. After that, the resolution of the scene following that's when I was like, whoa, Ryan, explain. You know what I'm talking about.
Did you see the credits? There were so many names.
Oh, man.
From start to finish, an episode. Okay. And Nate, you watched, right?
Yeah. That I found this episode very moving. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I watched The Penguin before it.
Town.
Yeah, it could have been that. It could have been his actual physical mobility. It could have been the bunting. I think maybe the bunting was what got to me. But no, I thought it was like it was a cool moment, even though it's sort of one of those things like with a lot of Superman conflicts where it's like you're fast enough, you could just like remove him and no one would notice you. And then you could put him in a dumpster and you could bury him alive, whatever. Like you could disappear this man.
You could throw him into the sun. I don't know why. That's always what it seems like. Superman, anytime he has a problem, he could just throw that problem into the sun.
You could throw him into the sun and then fly over to his daughter's house, who's the one who ratted him out, and just be like, you bitch. And then fly right back to the diner and sit down with you.
Where'd that guy go? Where is he?
Everybody would be like, suddenly windy in here. Oh, hey, Clark.
You seem warm.
Well, from now on, every time it's suddenly windy in here, I'm going to be like, Superman, what the fuck did Superman just do?
I do like he had a genuine moment of heroism, which was...
hold on, Nate. Sorry,
go ahead.
I'm a bad host. Can you explain to the listeners what the fuck we're talking about? Like, can you tell us the scene?
So in the in scene, we've spent the entire episode where Clark is like, nobody can find out I'm Superman. Everybody obviously already knows. People are like, the general store person is like, oh, you've been busy. Wink, wink, wink. Wink, 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 wink. Looking back at it, Superman on a TV right behind her. Wink, wink. And he's like, well, shucks, I'm not Superman. I don't know what you're talking about. So after all of this and a little bit of family conflict around that, because the boys want to not live in the closet, which is clearly the allegory we're going for here, is like you're closeted. You have to be closeted to be Superman. They go to the diner and they're sitting at a diner, and Superman and Lois are buying her friends who are pregnant a house. because that's what people do in this show. It's acts of economic heroism. And then this drunkard who apparently has beef with Soups comes in and is like, you're Superman. And he's like, no, bro, I'm not. And then he's like, well, I've got a gun and I'm going to shoot you to prove that you're Superman because you won't die.
Which,
and he's like, well,
Salem
shoot.
Witch Trial style. Like, if he's not Superman, he just murdered a guy.
Yeah.
Dining booth.
All right, point taken.
I'm out of here.
And so, we get probably the longest bullet time sequence since, I don't know, 1999. And he is able to look back and forth at Lois 3 times and look at the bullets 7 times and contemplate everybody in the diner. And then he disrobes in a way that we never see, to the point that he's wearing like regular everyday shoes over his Superman boots and they just disappear. But then he's like, hey, I'm Superman. And the bullet hits him and he's like, sorry, I lied to everybody, which I did think was kind of sweet. I thought that that was a very sweet moment to be like, I am sorry that I've been lying to you all this time.
So there's two things here. One, I do think that Superman is a character, and it's funny that we're doing BVS tonight. You know, like that is sort of the show is who are Batman and Superman as characters. But like, I think anytime you're dealing with Superman, you get not only can you get away with a little bit of corniness, people expect and want a little bit of corniness, which is what Zack Snyder never understood about the character.
Yeah.
And two, this episode, I fucking loved this episode. I'm so glad you watched, Greg, because I wanted to come in here and say, like, I know people's like aversion to CW-ness, but to put this episode and the Penguin episode against each other's episodes of TV, like there is no contest about what does its job better. But this episode made me think that stuff like this is only possible because that they know that their TV show has 3 episodes left. And isn't like such a big problem with Superman stories the fact that it's not that he has all the powers, it's that he has all the powers and we never have an ending. There always has to be another issue of a comic book, another season, another movie. And for them to now just be able to tell their story exactly how they want, I think it's gonna make this season like perfect Superman storytelling. The other day we were talking about Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman run and how I think James Gunn is going to take from it a little bit for his movie, and that was 12 issues. It was a defined maxi series, and that's what made it one of the best Superman stories ever told. You know?
Yeah, all of the best comic book stories really are these out of continuity stories, or like just like barely tied to a real continuity. Maybe the character references it later, but it's the anytime you go to read a comic book arc that you've heard is really good, and then they're like with them at work, and they're like upset at their boss, and you're like, what is this? And it's just like, well, because this is the soap opera of this book.
Right.
Day in, day out, they have to fill up these comics, but it just doesn't have much interest outside people who follow it issue to issue.
So you liked it, though? Like, was it painful to watch, Greg?
These shows are always a little painful to watch, but I do have to say, I think that there's a way in which the Penguin totally misses real human stakes. In a way that I don't think...
Yeah, nobody's trying to sell a grill in the Penguin.
That's what I'm so happy about is that Greg got a taste of Kyle finally after hearing about him for weeks.
And then that's something that this show, I think, does a lot better, which is you see these people as human. And that's, I think, what the CW has to offer and what they deliver on consistently. Sometimes it's hokey, and then when the action comes around, maybe it might break down a little bit there. But, like, envisioning these people as like, what would it be like to like be this dude and to have this kind of pressure put on your life? I think that they pull it off.
No Lex in this episode, which also I thought like, let's take a break from, or a little bit of Lex, right? We see him in
I mean, he got the shit beat square out of him last week. So
he's licking some wounds. I think that the most important question though, out of all of this, such an important episode is, and I know Smallville is a small town, little backwards, but why are these kids playing Killer Instinct? Why is that their go-to video game? Because I was like 12 when that came out.
Yeah. Well, but this is a reality where they're also going to see, I still don't know what you did last Flag Day.
Right. Always love a marquee joke.
The kids will love that one.
Do you guys remember who your character was in Killer Instinct?
I was the wolf guy.
There was like an ice one, right? There was an icy one.
Ice, yeah.
I like the ice
for a
one.
second. Then Sub-Zero was also my guy.
Yeah. Get the other player out of your face for a second.
Yeah.
Be frozen. Calm down.
Yeah. I'm not into this get over here nonsense.
Yeah.
I'd like you to stay where you are. Stay put.
Stand still.
But once I froze him, I would spend my entire time on the other side of the screen going like down to right.
Yeah.
Down to right. Hey, come on, I can do this.
Oh man, the rare times I would ever actually win a fight, and then I would try to do the fatality moves, and so the end of every fight would be my guy kind of like standing, squatting, and then standing up and then doing one weak jab. I'm like, well, that's the end of that fight. I was hoping to rip your head off, but instead I just kind of pushed you over.
When we were kids, people who were capable of fatalities, we figured they would become like just the rulers of the world, like
Oh,
business
yeah.
tycoons.
Yeah. Well, they were hardcore gamers.
Now they're probably dead. A fatality of their own.
Diabetes.
So Superman and Lois is on Tuesday nights on the CW. It's going to be like the only show we're watching for a while, guys. So please
Right.
keep tuning in for this final season. That is going to do it for tonight. Greg and Nate, thank you guys so much for being in here.
Hey, no problem.
Hey, thanks.
I can't believe how much less lazy you are than Mike and Cassie. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
We even ordered food from Bazoombas.
Delicious food from Bazoombas.
They are the Penguins to your guys' Superman and Lois, and so I appreciate that. Next week, Lex is probably coming back on Superman. And we'll get back to Spider-Man. Let's make that clear.
The animated series.
The animated series. We're doing a kind of shorter show tonight because Greg doesn't want to watch Spider-Man. But
I'm not gonna watch Spider-Man, Ryan.
The fact that we got him to watch SNL, I think, that was all worth it. For Nate, for Greg, my name is Ryan. Enough said.